Good morning. It is Friday, April the 16th. Yesterday would have been tax day, but tax day's been moved out to May 15th, a little bit of a grace period for everybody. I was looking at the weather this morning and wanted to say something about my grandfather, who used to have a saying that as far as planting around the house is concerned, you never do anything till Mother's Day. And this morning I was up early looking at the weather and remembered Grandpa because we're due for snow. We're going to get a little bit this weekend, but next Thursday we have a chance for upwards of an inch of snow. And I did a little research and found out that about 5% of our annual snowfall comes in April. And considering this year, that's going to be pretty consistent. So get ready. Now, forecasting snow for Thursday, that's a week away, is kind of iffy. We're either going to get sunshine and 80 degrees or 9 inches of snow. So you never know, but don't plan anything this weekend. Listen to what Grandpa said. So here we go. We had a really busy week. Let's get right into it. There's a lot to talk about. One of the things I wanted to visit with is to make sure that we kind of had some background on what the FOMC is. You hear it referred to as the Fed. And I think that going through the year, we're going to hear more and more about the Fed because as the economy grows, and the economy is growing, then it's up to the Fed to decide what to do to keep it from growing too fast. What you want is growth at a reasonable rate. The Fed was created in 1933 under the Banking Act, and that's part of the Federal Reserve System. It actually reports to Janet Yellen, who is now the Secretary of Treasury. She used to be chairman of the Fed. It's required that the chairman report to Congress at least twice a year. They typically do 3 times. There are 12 members with 5 alternates, and the members come from these districts. So you see there: Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Cleveland. The interesting part is how many of those are are east of the Continental Divide and actually east of the Mississippi River. The membership changes at the beginning of each calendar year. The Fed chairman is in for a 2-year period. There are 8 scheduled meetings per year. They're published well in advance. And basically they're charged with setting US monetary policy using a lot of tools. The one we're most familiar with is to set federal funding rate. And then they also direct activity of the Federal Reserve System, which is the banking system. And they're authorized to buy and sell obligations of the government. And what that does is that helps create a market. They're kind of like a market maker to make sure that the market is liquid, that it's moving, that it shores up prices. And they can use a lot of tools that they have available, what we'll call tools in their quiver, to try and accomplish what they want to accomplish as far as a healthy economy is concerned. And I think that over the next 12 months, we're probably going to hear more about them. There'll be more questions about what they can do, what they can't. And so that's why I want to go a little bit of background on what the Fed is, what the FOMC is, how it started, and what they're charged with. I think the interesting part is you go back to Greenspan. In my memory, Greenspan became chairman of the Fed just a few days before that October crash of 1987. They all have something very common, and that is they've got a poker face. I would not want to play cards with any of these guys or females that have been chairman of the Fed. They've all got a straight face. You see very little emotion from them when they're giving their testimony. You see very little emotion from them when they're talking on the street. We used to joke that if Greenspan coughed, the market would drop 50 points. There's something to that, and that's why they have such a staid demeanor. And it's incredibly admirable that they all have that talent to be able to talk and stay nice and even. So that's the FOMC. This week, we had the Beige Book come out. These are the highlights. I have not read the whole report. I don't know if anybody ever does. But basically, all of the districts are reporting, of the 12 districts of the FOMC are reporting there's an increase in growth, modest increase, that's fine. That the US economic activity has accelerated to a moderate pace from the last half of February to the early part of this month. Consumer spending is strengthening. Part of that is due to the stimulus that's going out. And part of that, in my opinion, is due to the fact that we're getting out, the weather's getting better. We're getting a little bit relaxed on the COVID part. So people are spending money. There's a lot of pent up anxiety going on. People are going to go out shopping. They're going to go out eating. And that's part of what's doing it. They're also buying more cars. They're spending more retails. A lot of those things are happening, number one, because there's a lot of stimulus money going out. Number two is people are just saying, okay, let's adapt. This is what we have. Let's try and get out and do some things we want to do. So the Beige Book highlights were all relatively positive. And I'm using relatively because I hate to say too positive, but it was a good report. And it shows a lot of strength in the economy. And it shows, and we heard comments this week from Mr. Powell, that his forecast is that this economy is basically not in a pause mode, but it's kind of like in a let's take a breath mode. I used that term last week, and then it's going to take off. And he seems to really believe that what we're going to see in the future is a really solid launch of the economy, and that's actually very good news. With the consumer price index came out, fastest pace in 8.5 years. That's good and bad. It increased 0.6% month over month. February prices were up 1.7. They're now up 2.6%. That's a pretty big hit. And a lot of that's coming from gasoline. Gasoline prices rose 9.1% in March. You know that gasoline had already hit a big low in 2020. It had to go up. Natural gas rose about 5%. Food, grocery, and eating out, those only increased by about 0.1%. That's already an extremely narrow margin in business. Grocery stores run at a 2 to 3% margin. So the fact that they went up 0.1%, that's not that surprising. But everything in general, the CPI went up, consumer price index went up, and a lot of it has to do with gas. Very little has to do with services. Next, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We had a 52-week high yesterday on the Dow Jones. We had a 52-week high on the S&P 500. I don't think that's anything to get excited about, because if you look back where we were 52 weeks ago, we were just coming out of the depths of COVID. So it's kind of hard not to hit a 52-week high when we were down around 18,000 on the Dow 52 weeks ago. So it's great that we're doing it. I don't think it's anything more than, okay, that's great, we're doing fine. I don't think it's anything to get excited about. What I am excited about is that we had a small dip in November, but we're steadily going up, and you can see the moving 7-day moving and 14 moving. They're getting closer and closer and closer. That to me shows a nice steady increase, and I like to see that. I think I've said before that 40 points a day would make me happy, and yesterday we were up 300 something points. So this is a good number. We're still seeing it going up. Not time to panic. You look back and go, okay, we had a couple of downs, but at the end, we're still doing pretty solid on the Dow. And then we have the Treasury yields. Those are still kind of taking a break. And right now, we're looking at 1.6% on the 10-year for right now. It's going to drop a little bit more. So not too much to worry about. I said earlier that this huge, big increase worried me a little bit. Down here, I want to see that 2-year line go up a little bit more. The spread is great. I want to see a spread. I do not want to see back here what we saw in October, because that is a precursor to a recession. And sure enough, we saw what's called an inverted yield curve. So the spread's great. That number is not awesome, but right now we're okay to live with it, and the economy is growing. So the yields are really okay, and we'll just keep an eye on those. This is our U.S. sectors. Remember, we did that first quarter of last year is how those were. I'm going to keep those on there for another couple of weeks. The trailing 12 is kind of an anomaly. Remember, we're talking from the depths of COVID, so we were at a low. It's bound to be high. The big thing is that 2021 year to date. You see some pretty good numbers in there. Oil and gas, let's set that aside. Gas or oil is now up to 63.03 a barrel. It was down at 30, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Financials are up 16%, industrials up 13, technologies up 12, basic materials up 14. A lot of it has to do with housing. So all these sectors are doing really well. Nobody's to the negative. Telecom is flat. And considering this is for the first 1, 2, 3.5 months, if you carry these out, multiply it times probably 3.5, that's a pretty good annualized return. So we'll keep an eye on that. We like what we see, and we'll keep going. We're not making any adjustments right now other than what we already made for information technology. This is the world markets. You can see the UK apparently is not shut down for the funeral. So that'll be tomorrow about 9 o'clock Central Time. So there's not going to be any real big stop in their markets or stop in commerce for the funeral of Philip. Right now, the UK is up 1% for the week, and they're recovering nicely. My concern for a recession may have been a little bit premature, or may not even have a place. Australia's quiet at 7.2. And there you have the bottom 3 indices for the United States. The one that that I follow a lot, S&P 500. That's what I do a lot of my portfolio designs after. Is up 11% year to date. That's just a wonderfully solid number, and if we could keep that pace up, that 1% a week would be incredible. I'm looking at, maybe 0.5% a week would be great. So we've had a good week, and generally we've had a good 2021 year to date. Our unemployment claims. This was pretty amazing news. I'm cautious on it because it was such a drop. But we dropped down to 665,000 claims last week, which is an enormous decline. We went down below 700,000, and that's not getting picked up over here, but it did drop down quite a bit. So now the next thing is, can we keep that up? I think it's possible because we're going into some good weather. We're going into summer. We have a lot, in particular, the airlines are hiring back. They're looking at thousands of positions they're going to bring back and thousands of positions to rehire. United alone is looking at 2,500 new pilots. So there's a lot of things happening where I think those unemployment claims could be headed on that downward trend that we so much look for. But last week, that drop below 700,000 was a nice, comfortable decline and good to see. So we'll keep looking at that, keep looking at the solid part, and maybe we're at the end of the tunnel on that unemployment. Next, we have the volatility index, and it just keeps creeping down. It makes me happy. Maybe we'll see that 10 that I like to see. But right now, we've got a volatility index this morning at 16.4. Wow, that's getting really close to what I want to see. And we sure are down from where we were a year ago. And again, this typically is a precursor, giving maybe 60 to 90 days ahead of the market. If this is accurate, then I'm back to what Jerome Powell said, which is the coming growth could be really impressive. And that's a cautionary tale, but with this volatility and what we're seeing, the Beige Book and all that, it's just a really good sign on some things. And then we have our calendar. We're already there for the durable goods orders next week, consumer confidence index. That's going to kind of mirror that volatility index we just talked about. Jerome Powell has a press conference next week, and on the 21st, we'll be watching that closely to see what he says and see if he just reiterates what they've been saying. Core inflation reports due out the 23rd. We're going to see that number above 2.1. We may see it at 2.6, 2.8, somewhere in there. That's not going to surprise me at all. And then on the 29th, we got the GDP quarterly numbers are going to be released. I expect those to be up, and I expect us to be, by legal definition, out of a recession. Mother's Day, keep reminding you about that. That's coming up May the 9th. Mallory and I will be retooling probably second or third week of June through the second or third week of July. We'll keep you posted on that, let you know how we go. So it's always great to be here every Friday. Great to see everybody, see some new faces. If you have any questions, give us a call, 913-259-2110. Stay safe. It's going to be a wonderful weekend. Watch out for the snow. And we will see everybody 1 week from today at 8 o'clock Central Time. Thanks for joining us. We really enjoy seeing everybody.